Well, no, not that, but somebody's got. I just say like here's I just say let's just draw those.
The live stream is going.
Let me know when you need somebody to throw a bomb in the room.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our first in a long time in-person MetroPlan Municipal Advisory Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Keith Trace, and I'll be chairing the meeting today. It is great to see everyone in person, and it's kind of hard to imagine that we have not been in person in 16 months. 16 months. So while we're back in person, the MetroPlan Orlando will continue to live stream this and other advisory board committee meetings. So members of the public can join us either in person or virtually. As a part of that effort, if you have already noticed, we have brand new audio video equipment in front of you. And further on coming up on the agenda, I guess, we have Mr. Jason. We'll just go with Jason of the MetroPlan Orlando Director of Finance and Administration, and he will provide an overview of this brand new system. Take it away.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our new system. It's going to look a little different. We have some new features in here. I'm going to go over them and show you how to use those fancy screens in front of you. So those screens there, we call them Taiden units. That's the company who makes those. They're an all-in-one unit. They have a microphone, they have speakers, the camera, and the screen. And in a second, I'll show you, you can display the presentations that are up here. So if you want a closer look, you'll also be able to access agendas wirelessly. The new system also can live stream to Zoom, YouTube, and other things beyond that we don't know about yet. There's some accessibility features. There's some hearing devices to help people with hearing impairment. That used to be right here. Here they are. So if anyone comes into the boardroom and has hearing impairment, we have these devices and headsets so they can hear through them. They also have hearing aid loops. So if people have hearing aids, it'll connect to their system and broadcast right into their hearing aids. There's also ways to plug in headsets into those devices as well, so that you'll be able to hear if someone had some hearing trouble. We've added some projector flexibility. Right now, they're all showing the same thing, but we have the ability to project different things onto different ones. So we have that we'll be able to do. And then lastly, at all the tables there in the center, or almost all the tables, you see a little round disc. Those they slide open. They have a little charging port. Yours is the only one who doesn't have it. That's our old one. But there is electrical outlet in there. And if you slide those open, there's little USB and electrical outlets to charge phones and devices. And if you have a wireless charging phone, you could just literally put your phone on that disc and it'll start charging your phone too. So a couple of fun new features in the system. When you come in, you're going to see one of two screens. You'll either see a sign-in screen or just the Taiden welcome screen. So if the sign-in is there, you'll see your name and you just press please sign in and you're off to the races. One of the harder things to see is the home button on this. On the right center of the bezel, there's a little square. That's the home button. As you get into more of the features, if you need to get out of them, you press that home button and it'll back you out one step at a time for each time you hit that home button. Most importantly is how to speak. There's a little, looks like a little face that you press to be able to speak, it'll turn red. You'll see that the back of the device turns red as well. And when you're red, that means you are live. And when it's not red, that means you are muted. We can have up to 4 of the devices active at a time, and we do that for sound control reasons. So if everyone starts turning them on at the same time, it'll start overriding each other. But what we're asking is when you want to speak, to turn it on, make sure you're red to speak. And then when you're not speaking, to go ahead and turn it off, mute yourself. And that'll help with the sound control of the room. And then also each of these devices, like I said, has a speaker. So whenever your microphone's active, your speaker is not active. So that's going to take away from some of the ability to hear when someone else is speaking. We also have the ability to access the agendas paperlessly now on here. There's a little icon on there once you sign in that says paperless. When you click on that, you get into like a little directory, and you'll want to click on the remote tab. And that's where you'll see the regular agenda, just the quick agenda, and then full agenda with all the backup in it. We have ability to put other things in there if we need to, but those are the 2 that we're going to be putting in for every meeting. And then you just click on that item that you want. It takes a second to load up, and then you'll see that the agenda loads up. And then once you're in there, if you can start that, please. You'll be able to, it's going to flip around. So you'll be able to pinch and zoom and scroll just like you would a smartphone. So you can kind of look around as needed, so you can get the size you want. And then there's some other find and other features in there. There's a little arrow on the left-hand side. It looks kind of small. You can click on that, and there's some search functionality. There's ways to jump to a page. And then the last thing I want to show you is the video. So if you're having a hard time seeing one of the screens, you can have this presentation show up on your device, and that's using the VOD button, video on demand. And then in that menu, you hit the HDMI in, that first icon there, and it's going to show you the same presentation. So with that, that is how you use the system. Yes.
Just one question on when we want to when we want to zip down to a certain tab, do we just have to scroll through the pages, or is there a direct?
Yeah, so it's a little hard to see on here. I apologize, but on the left-hand side, you see that little caret. There's a little caret on the very far left in the center. If you click on that, it'll give you some extra functionality.
Perfect.
But the tabs are not, the PDF is not hyperlinked though.
Yeah, there's no hyperlink.
No, I mean, it's hard to see, but it'll go right to the page. Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
And then one little comment is whenever you're speaking to, I think your camera comes live, and
Yes, yeah, and that goes out to the live stream as well. So
FYI.
and then for the cameras, like yours has your cup is kind of in the way of
Oh,
the camera. So just make sure that you don't have objects in the way. We are working with the vendor to add functionality for webcams that we can put on top. It's going to give us a little better angle. It's also going to give us a little better lighting. Like you get a little washed out with the screen behind there. So in the next month or so, we'll be able to add that. So the next time you come in, you'll probably see a little webcam on the top that you can adjust a little more.
Perfect. Does anyone else have any questions for Jason? All right, thank you very much. Now it's time for our Pledge of Allegiance. Today I've asked Mayor McCain to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very patriotic. Thank you very much. All right. And as Jason informed us that today's meeting will, if you could keep your microphone muted unless you've been recognized to speak. And then we do have a special guest in the audience today. Former Mayor, Maitland Mayor Dale McDonald is here, and he would like to share a few words if you'd like. Okay.
No, thanks. I just wanted to stop in today because I haven't seen you guys in so long, in what, 15, 16 months. And this is where the real work gets done when we get together. And I think we all can appreciate that. But, wanting to thank, Gary and his staff and Alex and Nick and the whole crew, Cynthia, everybody. was so very, very helpful for me in the last 6 years. And I miss this because this is where the real work does get done. And this is where you do things that will impress your children and your great grandchildren. And that's really our job. I mean, I'd look forward to being able to get back here one day. But the idea that everybody was great. I think we've worked together very well and get to know each other well. Personal relationships. You know, Eatonville and Maitland have worked together so very well. Winter Park as well for many years because we know each other and there are personal relationships, and that's where it all happens. So again, thank you, and I'll be back. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We have 2 public comment points in this meeting. Members of the public participating virtually are able to use the raise hand feature on their Zoom screen. If you're attending by phone, if you would please hit *9 to raise your hand and request to be recognized. When you're called, your microphone will be temporarily unmuted and staff will ask you your name and contact information for the record. We've also accepted comments via phone and email before the meeting. The guidelines for public comments are posted on MetroPlan's website, MetroPlan/virtual meetings. And then at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Alex Trager of MetroPlan staff for our agenda review.
Certainly. Thanks, Chairman Trace. Welcome back, everyone, on behalf of MetroPlan Orlando staff. We do want to welcome you back into our offices. It has been over 16 months for many of you. So thank you for rejoining us. And we're glad you were able to find it. So I'm glad you're able to kind of still make it here today. For those who haven't been with us before, and this is their first time, I do know we have a few new members. Quick housekeeping items. We do offer coffee and tea, off to the left-hand side out of the room. And then obviously restrooms, you walked past them on your way into the boardroom today. We do validate our advisory committee members, parking validation. So if that hasn't already been taken care of, just let us know and we'll make sure we address that before you leave today. We are, as Keith mentioned, continuing live streaming our meetings to the public. So be mindful of that as we continue our face-to-face meetings. But that really completes my announcements today. We do have a lengthy agenda, 7 action items, a couple ratifications of previous topics this committee has taken up. But other than that, we're going to move forward with the printed agenda, and I'll ask Miss Lisa Smith to go ahead and call the roll.
Anderson,
Here.
Anselmo, Cole,
Here.
Dallas, Drummond, Firstner,
Here.
Foraker, Henson,
Here.
McCann,
Here.
O'Brien, Ramos, Sladek, Smith,
Here.
Trace.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I was worried there for a second. All right, up next is public comments on action items. Do we have anyone in the audience or online wishing to speak on any action item?
Sally, Lisa, is anyone online?
I have not received any. in person.
Mr. Chair, there's no one wishing to speak online.
All right, and Alex, are there any written comments that were
We did not receive any in advance of the meeting.
perfect? All right, hearing none, we will move forward to agency reports from our agency partners. FDOT and the Turnpike are making presentations later on the agenda, so if you'd like to defer your comments until then, that is perfectly fine. But up first, we have the Florida Turnpike Enterprise with Mr. Fine.
Good morning, committee members. Last week, the Florida Turnpike Enterprise held a public kickoff meeting for the Poinciana Parkway Extension PD&E study from County Road 532 to the I-4 State Road 429 interchange. The project will analyze alternatives to extend the Poinciana Parkway from County Road 532 to the I-4 429 interchange. Modifications to the I-4 State Road 429 interchange and increasing capacity on State Road 429 from I-4 to Sinclair Road. The public kickoff meeting was available as a virtual event held on the 22nd of June, which included online and telephone participation, and an in-person event, which was held on the 24th. To review the materials displayed at the meeting, please visit www.poincianaextension.com. Again, that's www.poincianaextension.com. And with that being said, that is my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fine. We'll move on to action items today. Today, we have 7 action items on today's agenda. Our first item is the lengthy package of minutes from our virtual workshops from November 2020 through June 2021. A listing of those meetings is provided in tab 1 of your agenda package on your screen there. Copies of the minutes were previously provided with each of the respective meeting agendas that were reviewed, and the minutes were approved, I guess.
By consensus.
Yeah, by consensus during those meetings. Are there any corrections, revisions, or items that are needed to be brought to staff's attention on those meeting minutes?
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Is there a second? All right, second by Mayor Sladik. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign? All right, item passes unanimously. Our second item is the ratification of the board action items from November 2020, again, till June 2021. Items, backup and details for those are found on item 2, tab 2 of your agenda package. Is there any discussion or a motion from the board?
I move we approve or we ratify all of our board actions.
Perfect, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like side? All right, item 2 passes unanimously. Up next is a DOT emergency amendment to the FY 2021 through 2025 tip found in tab 3 of your agendas. Mr. Keith Caskey from MetroPlan Orlando staff will present it at this time. If you would please hold comments until the presentation is finished.
Okay, thanks. Now, this amendment request came up in late May after most of the other committees had already met. And this had to be amended into the state TIP by the June 10th deadline. So FDOT requested this amendment to be processed on an emergency basis. So our board chairwoman signed the resolution approving this request on May 27th based on MetroPlan's policy for processing emergency TIP amendments. And this request includes moving part of the construction funding for the Cross Seminole Trail Connector project from the existing project number to a new project number so that the city of Longwood can provide staff services for the project under a LAP agreement. And then the other project involves FTA grant funds and local matching funds, adding those funds for links to purchase 6 new electric buses for the limo system. And you all have the information on this in tab 3 in your packets. The board will be requested to ratify the signed resolution at their July 7th meeting. So unless there's any questions, we're asking for your recommendation to ratify the amendment.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion or questions or comments for Mr. Caskey? All right. If none, I'm looking for a motion for approval.
So moved.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like side? All right, item passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Fifth, fourth, up next on the agenda is item D, recommendation of approval of the FY 2022 through 2026 Transportation Improvement Program. This information was reviewed at our last MAC meeting, and details can be found in tab 4 of your agenda. Again, Mr. Caskey from MetroPlan Orlando staff will be presenting.
Okay, well, as the chairman mentioned, I did give you all a preview of the new TIP at your meeting last month. And there is a link to the draft TIP in your agenda, and then some additional information in tab 4. And we had our virtual TIP public meeting on June 21st, and we had really good attendance. This slide shows the comparison of the attendance we had at last year's TIP public meeting compared to this year's meeting. And last year we had 51 public attendees with a total attendance of 74, including the panelists. And this year we had 80 public attendees with a total attendance of 105. So we were very pleased with the turnout. And there were quite a few questions and comments that came up during the meeting on various topics. And I listed some of the main topics on the slide there, such as the need to shift more funding away from major capacity highway projects to alternative transportation modes such as transit, bike ped, complete streets, and so on. And we had several questions and comments about the need to expand bus and Sunrail hours of service. And then there was some discussion about the need for more electric vehicle charging stations and for greater mobility equity for people without cars, and what Links is doing to help address that issue. And we sent a summary of the comments out to separately to all the committees. And we had two polling questions that were at the meeting. The first one was, which of these best describes your transportation personality? And there were four options, such as the debater, the advocate, the logistician, and the adventurer. And most people saw themselves as the advocate of having, vision for the perfect transportation system and working together to try to achieve that vision. And then the other question was, where should Central Florida increase spending the most to improve our transportation system? And the vast majority of votes went to increasing spending to improve the transit connections between the bus and rail systems. And we had a group of panelists from our local jurisdictions and agencies that helped us answer questions during the meeting, which was very helpful. And we really appreciate their participation. And the TIP will be going to the board for approval at their July 7th meeting. And so we're asking for your recommendation for approval of the new TIP.
Well, great. That was great participation from those participants in that meeting. Do we have any questions or comments from this group? All right. Hearing none, do I hear a motion for approval?
So second,
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like side. All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The fifth action item today is the approval of the prioritized project list. This item was also previewed at last month's meeting and can be found at tab 5 of your agenda. There's a very bright tie today. From Mr. Nick Lepp from MetroPlan Orlando staff will be presenting it.
Thank you. And I wouldn't know because I'm partially colorblind. So prioritized project list for all of the that don't know is kind of that bridge between our Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which is our big visionary document that has that 25-year plan of transportation projects. And this is that list that will enter into the Transportation Improvement Program. Years in the past, that prioritized project list has always mirrored that MTP or long range plan. It had the same list of projects going out that 20-year horizon. New rules have had to shorten that. Now, only the first 10 years of projects identified as cost feasible are now eligible to enter the TIP. So the prioritized project list not only is structured a little differently because we adopted a new plan, but is also a little shorter based on those new rules and requirements. Like I said, it's the bridge that kind of gaps these two major documents. Has to have direct linkage to our cost feasible plan, meaning that we've determined that there is enough money to get these projects advanced into our TIP based on cost feasibility. They are all surrounded around our goals and objectives that were developed through our 2045 MTP update. And it's consistent with our funding policies, especially when it comes down to the MetroPlan TMA funds, those urbanized area funds that come to our district. The board has policies for allocating those towards complete street projects, sidewalk and bike ped projects, transportation systems management, as well as transit projects. And those funding policies are included within the prioritized project list. As I mentioned, everything is based off of our goals and objectives that were established through that long range plan. Within there also are performance measures and metrics. Now our prioritized project list is a performance-based planning prioritized project list. Using a data-driven approach to identify those priorities, these are the metrics that we're using for that data-driven approach. Each one of these performance measures has a point system. Those point system is aggregated up, and then the highest point project is now our highest ranked project based on these performance measures, which all help us also support our major transportation goals and targets for safety, travel time reliability, and the other federal measures that I presented before. Something new from the last time I presented. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah.
On that, so then are we going by? I noticed that we had the two rankings. Are we going to then be going by the weighted ranking or still the other rank? I mean, how do those relate?
Actually, just getting right into that. So last time I presented you an unranked version of, or an unweighted version of our ranked priority list, which are just the raw numbers that came out of those performance measures that I just showed you on the last slide. Since then, as we presented this to the board has decided to use a weighting onto our goals and objectives to add more emphasis. Under this case, safety and security was the #1 weighted goal. So projects that met those performance measures or using those performance measures for safety and security were weighted higher, and those projects moved up. So on and so forth for the remaining goals. It doesn't mean that they were not taken into account into the process. It just means health and environment got its #1 ranking, as in just sticking with the raw numbers. Reliability had 2 points, second weighting, investment economy 3, access 4, and safety and security 5. So 5 times weighting as we were looking at safety and security projects. Additionally, the board wanted to add more emphasis to those vulnerable road users, addressing some of that dangerous by design in our pedestrian safety problem that we've had in the region. So there's even more emphasis in that. So the prioritized project list that you saw in the draft with the 2 separate rankings, you had one which were unweighted, and then the other one, the other column demonstrated where those projects may be moved up or down based on the emphasis of safety, security, and vulnerable road users. Included in this new prioritized project list are also some new and existing programs. They're kind of at the top. We try to fund those first before we start getting into new projects and phases. New to the program, we are allocating $2 million per year on the national highway and state roads for the Department of Transportation, start advancing some of those TISMO and technology projects on that state road system. We've had that for our system, the off-system projects. Now we're doing a complementary program for DOT in that. We're continuing with our Complete Streets program, as well as school mobility and signal retiming within our priorities. But we've also added a safety emphasis program, a sidewalk gap program, and also an ACES demonstration program. These won't start until fiscal year 25, which is the start of our plan, but it's something that we're going to work towards and start prioritizing some of those projects within our plan using these boxes versus having just the project list that we have within our cost feasible plan. And also I wanted to add the new off-system construction program, which is new to our process and the prioritized project list. We've always had mechanisms where our projects using our urbanized area funds have some constraints. Mostly have to go on complete streets, sidewalks with bike ped. They also have a $4 million cap for a phase. This plan is going to work with our local government partners. If they do the initial planning, design, and right-of-way purchase, we will assist with the construction up to 100% of the construction, depending on the funds that are available. That can go towards those bigger capital projects, like a widening project off the state roads, or even a trail bridge that has been log jammed on our list for years because we just can't get enough funds to fund that because it's over $4 million.
Could I ask a quick question on that?
Sure.
That last slide. Am I understanding correctly that there's about a $2 million budget per category, but 32% are complete streets? Like, it feels like you will be able to do a whole lot less on streets. So if 32% of the projects are complete streets, I guess that could be sidewalks.
Correct. And it's also, that's a 32% of our urbanized area funds. So both of these 2 pots are based on our 2 pots of funds. So other arterials, which is that larger bucket of funds, which kind of represents the transportation infrastructure bank for the department, that's got a lot more money in it. The urbanized area funds that come to our district are roughly around $27 million a year. And those are the funds that we use to fund those off-system projects like complete streets that can come for sidewalks. But our sidewalk and trails and school mobility is a separate pot of money. So we try to balance them out, and these aren't hard set percentages where the funds come out. We try to balance this over a 5-year period because different project phases have different costs. As you're doing a design phase may have less cost than a construction phase. And so you have to try to balance it out over the project life of a 5-year period. Welcome. So just highlighting some of our top projects that came out of now this project priority list, and this is what we're going to look for adoption from this board. Looking at the national highway and state roads, top priorities are still surrounding around 1792 down in Osceola County, as well as 535. State Road 434 with the complete streets are also still at the top of our list, as well as Robinson Street and Johnson Parkway. Our off-system construction, like I said, this is a new program, but it requires our local governments to have some sort of commitment on the initial planning, design, and right-of-way phases. So right now, these are the projects that we have submitted from our local government partners. Program doesn't start till 2025, so I'm sure we'll have a lot more projects coming in over the next year that we'll have to resort through. But right now, we're looking at supporting the construction of Old Lake Wilson Road in Osceola County as the #1 project for this new program. Our transportation systems management projects, a lot of them with the technology and intersection and safety improvements, Pine Street within downtown, also down in Osceola, we have Canoe Creek. And then Robinson Street and Huey, also downtown, are really starting to bubble up with the transportation systems management projects. Complete streets largely remain the same, even with the ranking change. That's because a lot of them are safety and pedestrian focused. So the top projects are still largely where they are, with Warren and Central Ave being up at the top for some of our complete street advancements. And then our regional trails, not really affected by the rankings because they are off the state roadway system and really don't have a lot of bicycle pedestrian crashes right there. So a lot of our newer projects are looking at like the Little Econ Trail Bridge and also continuing those Shingle Creek connections within our region. Still supporting transit through this program, though we still don't have those operational funds to advance a lot of our major new transit routes, but we want to support links through the prioritized project list with their capital expenses and that transit asset management, which is one of those federal requirements that we need to do through the performance measures. Our top premium transit is still that Sunrail Phase 3 connection from the airport to Meadowwoods, connecting Sunrail into the airport. But really the top projects for links are the southern and northern operation bases, which are both needed to support any expansion of transit for links as they are constrained right now. So that is a preview of our new, now draft final, prioritized project list based on performance-based planning and the updated ranks. We're going to present this to the board for their adoption and then ultimately submit it to the department, the prioritized list for the national highway and state roads, as well as our TMA programming list for those other programs. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Nick. Not all at once, but I'm sure we have a couple questions. None?
I've got one.
There you go.
So I've got like my dual screen thing going on. It looks like the list is a 20-page long, teeny tiny little thing. Just so I'm not missing something, this is not anywhere on our material. Like, oh no, I pushed the button now. I'm like in this weird, I'm shaking my hands at a screen. Is this anywhere? Can we push a button and get that on our screens here?
The presentation.
The presentation or this at the same time? I'm cool having two devices.
There is a link to the list within the agenda. I'm not sure how that functions. We'll go to the link doesn't work. Okay.
Okay. So I've got my side screen going, which.
So that's
all right,
something we
cool.
can look for next agendas to make sure that they're.
Oh, so yeah, there's no question other than technique stuff. So
Oh,
thank
okay.
you.
Yeah, I like the dual screen thing too. I've got to
Yeah.
do both.
Okay, cool. I'm glad it's not just me.
And I do like the change in prioritization criteria. We need to get off those pedestrian safety lists for Central Florida. So the more focus on that, the better. If there's no other questions or comments from the board, do I hear a motion for approval?
So move.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, item passes unanimously.
Thank
Up
you.
next is our, the next action item is a request for recommendations for volunteers for the pedestrian safety working group. Mr. Wilson with MetroPlan Orlando staff will provide some background information before we make recommendations.
I'm not seeing Mike in the room, but I think I can provide a little context. If not, Nick will fill in the gaps. Our technical advisory committee meeting, really as a follow-up to Dangerous by Design, but really diving more into the analysis that Mike provided, in some past presentations, wanted to form a pedestrian safety working group to really tackle the issue from the planning level, all the way to construction and design. So they had a working group of our technical advisory committee meeting, which are your city and county, planning and technical staffs. But they've come together and they want to form this group to support, changing, the issue as it relates to pedestrian safety. What makes this action item different than our other committees is the other committees were actually requesting membership from, our citizens group was requesting 3 members. Our TAC and TISMO groups were requesting members. But what we're asking of you here today is not of your participation, but if you would like to volunteer someone, maybe a technical staff from your municipality or someone else who may add value to that group. Nick, did I hit it on the head or is there any more background that I missed?
Nope, you hit it on the head, and I was just going to be here just to offer if there was already some of your staff that have volunteered, like for example, Erin Sturck from St. Cloud has already offered her services on that committee. So, but if there's anybody else on the committee that doesn't have one of their members, we would be happy to.
Do you need a staff person or could it be just a member of the community who's really into this?
We're actually looking for, we have a cross between our community advisory committee and technical staff, but honestly looking for more technical staff as we're going to be dealing with some safety technical component.
Okay. Before that presentation, I was going to nominate everyone that was absent from the meeting today, but I guess
Technical
not.
knowledge.
That's one way to get it.
So I guess, do you want all of us to follow up with our city staff, and if they have any recommendations to just email, or do we need a formal action on that?
Don't need a formal action right now. We just wanted to offer that to the MAC members as well as we have for our committee. So please feel free to email us if you have anybody who'd like to participate in the committee.
And when do you need that by?
Next week, sometime next week.
If you are interested or want to volunteer anyone after you coordinate with them. Oh, I'm already here. Just send me an email by the end of next week and we'll coordinate directly with them on any future scheduling.
As Mayor Slated had asked, will there in the future be opportunities? I also have a couple of, one in particular, a resident that's very involved and chairs our pedestrian committee and does a great deal of work and is interested in becoming more involved. Could there be possible opportunities for residents, non-technical issues down the road on other advisory?
Yes.
Short answer, yes. We actually do have a citizens advisory, community advisory committee. Apologize from years past, which is made up of citizens from around the region. We actually just slated the few vacant seats just a few months ago, but we're always looking for that. So I'll pass your information on to Marion Horn, who's our CAC staff liaison, and we'll see how we can coordinate for filling a future spot for sure.
Well, actually, I guess we're looking for applications towards the end of the year. So that process will start again. Yep.
Yeah, and there'll be, each of us, I think, have one city representative, and then there's county-wide representatives too, so you can fill some of those slots if you need be. All right, so I guess we don't need to take formal action on this item. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very much. Our final action item today is appointing bylaws review and nominating subcommittee. Mr. Trauger will present a little background and context for the volunteers.
So this is an item that we definitely need action on today. And this topic, or these two topics, were actually affected by the pandemic and us being in that virtual workshop format where we weren't able to take action. Historically, or based on the MAX bylaws, your July meeting is kind of what we call our annual meeting of the Municipal Advisory Committee. That couldn't take place, or rather our last month, our May meeting is that couldn't occur because of the virtual workshop. So this is our first time together where we can actually take action, form a bylaws review and nominating subcommittee. So we are looking for 3 to 5 members with a good geographic distribution, from the committee to review the bylaws. But I think more importantly, to nominate your next chair and vice chair for our upcoming year. Staff, as part of our kind of continuing continuity of operations, updated the MAC bylaws in November of 2020. So we just did kind of a precursory update. But, as we form this subcommittee, we are going to open things up. So, if that subcommittee wants to make any changes to bylaws, of course, that's at your prerogative. But the really main focus, just based on our recent update to those, is to slate or to set a slate of officers. So with that today, we're not taking nominations for leadership of the MAC. We are taking nominations, or volunteers rather, to participate on that nominating subcommittee, which we'll find that we'll shop a good date and time over the next 3 to 4 weeks. But we're looking for 3 to 5 people. And like I said, we'd like a good geographic distribution as well. So we'll take nominations, and we do need action on this, Mr. Chair.
All right. And all at once, I figured everyone would want to nominate themselves for this.
This is just for the committee.
Yeah.
The subcommittee.
I'll volunteer, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? And you're in
Edgewood.
Yeah, but
Which is
Orange
an
County.
Orange County
Orange, yeah.
municipality.
I think we need Kevin McCann on there since he's one of our newest. Get familiar with those bylaws.
Okay, yeah.
You're in Orange County?
No.
Winter Springs and Seminole County.
Winter Spring.
I was asking Firstner actually. Commissioner, you're in Ocoee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're in Orange, but how diverse do we have to be?
3 to 5, right now we have, you volunteered on Orange County municipality. Mayor McCain is Seminole.
I guess.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yeah.
It would be good as our only Osceola County municipality to participate.
Short straw. I love it.
Thank you for that. So that makes 3. Like I said, we're working with 3 to 5, and the MAC's only a group of like 12 to 14.
All right, so we have all the counties represented
Yes.
now. Any other ones that want to, or if we want to nominate someone that's not here, because you got to show up.
Virginia, are we missing anything as part of this? I just want to make sure, this is my first time going through this process as your liaison, so I just want to make sure we're doing things by the book. So.
Like Mr. Cole wants to. I saw your hand go up, right? Mr. Cole, all right. All right, we got 4. Nominate yourself.
It's recommending a panel, so
Yeah.
we don't need an
Yeah.
odd number for any
Okay.
reason. So we're just looking for 3 to 5. So
I think Jordan Smith has a diversity of background and such things. But you do, because you've got the political side, you've got the technical side. Yeah.
Reluctant. I think I saw someone kick each other under the table. All right. All right. So we've all nominated each other. That's great. Before I ask for a motion, I'd like to read the names again. Mayor John Dowlis, Kevin McCain, Keith Trace, Eddie Cole, and Jordan Smith. Is that everyone? All right. Do I hear a motion for that slate? All right. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like side. All right. That motion passes unanimously. And then Alex will be reaching out to set a date and time for that formation meeting, that subcommittee meeting. All right. Up next, we have presentations and status reports. Our first presentation is on MetroPlan Orlando's annual traffic signal retiming program. All right. And Ms. Laura from MetroPlan Orlando staff will be presenting today.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, MAC committee members. It's lovely to see you all in person. I am Laura Bauk, MetroPlan staff, here to provide a brief summary of our fiscal year 2019-2020 signal retiming travel time and delay study. This is a study we do annually to assess how well our annual signal retiming program has performed. So let's get into it. So for those who are not as familiar with our retiming program, this is the 14th consecutive year that MetroPlan Orlando has funded the retiming and coordination of signals throughout our region. So every year we work with our agency partners and identify which signals throughout the region need to be retimed. And then we implement or develop and implement retimings on the selected signals. We use the signal retiming program as a way to increase traffic flow and reduce congestion, to account for changes in traffic patterns, and to reduce delay, and also improve air quality and fuel consumption. We also, the regular retiming of signals also allows our municipalities to sort of regularly look at intersection operations and signal progression, and also to identify related maintenance issues, and particularly with our signal equipment that's out there. So for the fiscal year 2019 and 2020 program, we retimed signals on 30 corridor segments and at 17 independent intersections. And for 14 of those 17 intersections, they were near schools. And so in addition to looking at delay during the peak periods, we also looked at reducing delay during that pickup and drop off time. So the next few slides are just going to show where each of the projects were that we retimed for this year program. Within Osceola County, starting in the south, we did 4 projects. Here in Orange County, we had the most projects, and you can see quite a few of those are intersection delay or school delay projects. And then moving north in Seminole County, we had 6 projects for that year. So looking at our findings, of the 30 corridor segments that were retimed, 93% of them, or 28 of the 30 corridors, had shorter travel times following the retiming. And generally for the retiming of the corridors, our agencies were looking at reducing that end-to-end travel time. So mission accomplished there. We also saw that 93% of the corridors had reliable travel times following the retiming, as compared to 80% that had reliable travel times before retiming. When we talk about reliability, again, we're seeing that the travel time on that corridor segment is going to be about the same every time you do it. Looking at our intersection delay results, at those 17 intersections, 88% or 15 of the 17 intersections had reduced delay during the peak period after the retiming. And at those school intersections, 57% or 8 of the 14 intersections had less intersection delay during those pickup and drop off times. This slide just provides an overall summary of the retiming for fiscal year 2019-2020, where we saw an annualized travel time savings of over 500,000 hours. And that converts over into a 3-year benefit of $27.2 million if you assume a travel time cost savings of about $18 an hour. The total project costs for that particular program year was $1.3 million. And so that converts over into a benefit cost ratio of about 22. It's a pretty good benefit cost ratio. And for us, it just shows that this is still a good program for us to be investing in year over year. And to that point, this slide shows some of our historic VC ratios starting back in 2010. You can see sort of in the earlier years of when we were funding this program, we had really, really high VC ratios, and those started to drop off over the years. And really a few years ago, we were starting to wonder if we had sort of reached the limits of the efficiency we could get through the signal retiming program. But the last couple of years, we've seen that number start to go up again. I think that just shows that there's always work to be done, and travel patterns continually change throughout the region. So we're able to sort of update the retimings as we need to keep things moving how they need to. Reducing delay throughout the region also leads to fuel savings and reduced vehicle emissions. And for this particular program year, we saw fuel savings of 471,000 gallons and reduced vehicle carbon dioxide emissions of about 4,600 tons per year. And I'm going to end my presentation just talking a little bit about signal timing and safety. So historically, we have looked at adjusting clearance times and pedestrian times year over year, and look at adjusting them to meet best practices sort of as needed. And then with the regular coordination, we are able to increase platooning and minimize diversions, which not only benefits our travelers that are on those main corridors, but also travelers trying to cross the corridors or turn onto those corridors. And then in recent years, both MetroPlan Orlando and our agency partners are increasingly thinking about how we can use the retiming program as a way to promote safety throughout the region. And so increasingly, we're looking at treatments like adding leading pedestrian intervals. That's where the lights are red for all of the movement, so the pedestrians can cross before the cars start moving. Looking at more no right turn on red, protected left turns, and reduced cycle length as a way to increase safety for both pedestrians, bicyclists, as well as drivers. And that is all I have for you today, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Laura. And I think I have another metric to add to that. The frustration factor of hitting 3 red lights in a row hopefully goes away with these signal retimings. Can you email that presentation
Yes.
out? There's some of those facts and figures that I'd like to throw out to our staff as well. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Laura?
Yeah, I just had one quick question. I know this is all about the timing settings, but in terms of detection and sort of doing the measurements, are we and I apologize, I'm kind of the new guy on the commission or the board, but when you're doing the timing settings, are you relying on existing loops or whatever you want to call them in the, at the signal to track the traffic? Or are you doing individual sort of updates of every road at that intersection? How are you determining?
Are you talking about for the data?
I'll tell you where
collection?
I'm going is we're
Okay.
looking at an investment in smart streets, smart city investments. We
Okay.
just laid fiber optics and all that kind of thing. And so my question is, does this extend to, utilizing sort of our advanced computing and detection and signal controls? Is there something that ties into our smart cities efforts?
So what I will say is sort of all the agencies are thinking about that sort of thing now, adding more sensors so that we're ready.
Right, sensors.
Ready and able to welcome more connected and autonomous vehicles into the region. And so I think as we're doing these studies, looking at each of the consultants that go out and get actually into the cabinets, they look at what's out there and they're able to coordinate with the traffic engineers at the maintaining agencies, talk about what is needed. With respect to data collection that we do for this particular study, what we have done historically is use Bluetooth data over the last several years. And actually we're starting to sort of tiptoe into looking at connected vehicle data as another way for us to collect data. So I think it all does tie together. I don't know that this program directly impacts that, except that we do take a look at what equipment is out there at the time, and that's reported through the reports, and so that the agencies can look at what they need to update.
And I'll talk to our traffic guys because I just thought about the question, but we're making investments in the smart city network there, predominantly on Fairbanks and Loma, and it sounded like y'all could start helping us doing real-time optimization when that thing is happening. And is that something that y'all do, is sort of real-time optimization, or have the ability to do it, or do we have to embed that in our own systems?
It depends on what roadway you're talking about for some of the
state
real
road,
time
yeah.
stuff. If it's a state roadway, then a DOT would be handling that, but we do coordinate with them. Thanks.
Okay.
And then having all your signals on the fiber optic network helps too, because they all talk to each other.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Mayor Sladek.
There was a stat of 93% of roads improved, which means 7% either stayed the same or got worse. Did they get worse? Just out of curiosity.
A couple of them got a little bit worse, but overall it was very slight. Sometimes there's only so much you can do when you're looking at a full corridor. So yeah.
So was it because of increased traffic added during the course of the study? Like what made it get, I'm just wondering, is there anything that we can do as municipalities and partners with MetroPlan to help not make things worse? Yeah, because everyone's always asking us to retime the lights, and they think that retiming the lights is going to fix things. And it only does 93% of the time, apparently.
So the answer to that is two-part. First, for this particular year, this was a pandemic year for our retiming program. And so I think all of our results come with a bit of a maybe tiny grain of salt. And so in some cases, some of that difference may just be because of changing travel patterns because of the pandemic. But also for some of the corridor segments, they may be coordinated or they may cross with another coordinated system. And so you have to so you have to think about how the signals are working all together. And sometimes there's only so much you can do.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Laura. Our next presentation is from FDOT on the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate project. Ms. Catalina from FDOT District 5 will provide a status update.
There we go. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yes, my name is Catalina Chacon with FDOT, and I'm here to provide an update on the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate project. For today's agenda, we're gonna go over a brief overview on I-4 Beyond the Ultimate, BTU. We're gonna look at the I-4 Ultimate and Sand Lake Road project update. We're gonna share with you how we are reimagining the I-4 Beyond the Ultimate corridor based on some new tools that we have. We're gonna be looking at the I-4 BTU South extension. Then we're gonna be looking at the North, next steps, programming update, and questions. Okay, quick overview on I-4 Beyond the Ultimate. Some of the goals of I-4 Beyond the Ultimate include increased safety, enhanced mobility. We realize that I-4 is the backbone of Central Florida, and we want to increase connectivity between the communities and also support the economy of the region. Looking at the big picture on I-4 BTU on the south, what you're looking on the graphic are the 4 segments that came out of the PD&E study. So we have 4 segments that go from where I-4 Ultimate ends or begins, which is segment 2 shown on the screen. We go with segment 1B, 1A, and 5 all the way in Polk County. As you can see on the right-hand side, you have the table of the current cost for construction and right-of-way. And as you can see, the majority of these segments are currently not funded for construction or right-of-way. And you could also see the magnitude of the size of this project. We have segment 2 shown here, the very first one. It's currently tentatively programmed in fiscal year 32 for construction. Looking at these segments on the north, so we have 2 segments, segment 3 that start where I-4 Ultimate ends or begins near Longwood or State Road 434. And then we have segment 4 in Volusia County all the way to State Road 472 in the land. Similar situation when it comes to the funding, we have only one of the projects tentatively funded for construction in fiscal year 32. And then the right-of-way, it's only one of the projects is funded for right-of-way. I would like to point out that those 2 segments, segment 3 here on the north and segment 2 on the south, I say that they're tentatively funded because I-4 is part of the SIS program, the Strategic Intermodal System Program. And the way that the department programs this facilities, the ones that are in the SIS system, is based on our SIS cost feasible plan. This is a plan that looks at a 45-year horizon with the current revenue projections. So we're looking at it today, and based on whatever projections we have today, a year from now, we will do an update, and those projections can change. So the funding year can also potentially change. So that's when I say it's tentatively funded, is because this is outside of our 5-year work program. And it could potentially change. And also I would like to point out that it's 10 years from now, like July 1st today, we started fiscal year 22. So it is a long time before we can build anything. And we know we have needs today on I-4. I'm gonna switch gears quickly, and I'm gonna talk about the I-4 Ultimate and Sand Lake Road update. So we are in fiscal year 22, so later in spring of next year, we were getting ready to let the Sand Lake Road and I-4 interchange improvement. Based on our current evaluation and given the timeline of I-4 Ultimate with an expected completion by the end of this year, we have been doing analysis, traffic analysis, and we realized that we're gonna see some bottleneck between basically where I-4 Ultimate ends and State Road 528. We know that we need to provide more capacity to I-4. So how do we do this? And then with the anticipated Sand Lake Road and I-4 interchange, we decided to include the extra capacity that's needed to I-4 in this project. And with that, we changed the procurement of this project from a design bid build to design build to still let it in the spring of next year. So our anticipated construction cost is $208 million. We will be including the Diverging Diamond interchange that was already planned at this interchange, Sand Lake Road and I-4. And we will also be adding that additional capacity to I-4 in the form of extending the one single express lane in the westbound direction from where I-4 Ultimate ends today near Universal Boulevard, all the way by about 8 miles south or west to State Road 536. Okay, so now going back to how we are reimagining the I-4 BTU corridor. So as I mentioned on the very first slides, the current construction status it's very limited. So we have limited funds and we have a lot of needs throughout the I-4 corridor, basically everywhere. So we have new tools since, basically since we had the PD&E approved for I-4 Beyond the Ultimate back in 2017, that we would like to evaluate to see if we can take advantage of those new tools with the hope to bring the cost down, make the projects more cost feasible so that we can deliver these projects, put them out to be constructed, and that the construction industry can actually deliver this project. So we're looking at the size of the projects. We're looking at utilizing those new tools that we have available to us now, keeping in mind the same purpose and need that was already established in the PD&E. So in our value engineering approach or reimagining I-4, we are going to revisit the typical section. We're going to see how can we add the capacity that we need to I-4 based on new policies that we have. We want to look at the access assumptions, basically those exit points and entrance points to and from the express lanes, as well as the direct connects. And then we're going to look at the size and cost of the projects that we want to build. So some of the opportunities that we would like to take a look at and see if we can apply to I-4 Beyond the Ultimate include the updated managed lanes policy. Basically, this policy gives us more flexibility on how to add the capacity that we need. Prior to this policy, every time we needed to add capacity to an interstate, so I-4, we needed to add express lanes. Well, now we have the managed lane policy, which basically says you can look at other types of managed lanes. Express lanes are a form of a managed lanes, but you also have truck lanes or HOV lanes, or you could toll the lanes by the time of day. So we have more options. We could also look at just adding general use lanes to relieve this or provide this capacity that we need. We also have more guidance and more experience with those ingress and egress points to and from the express lanes, as well as the direct connects. So we're gonna relook at this and see if we can make some efficiencies in the BTU project. We also have new parameters that we would like to look into when it comes to the separation type of the express lanes and the general use lanes. And then finally, like I mentioned, based on industry feedback and lessons learned from all of the projects ongoing, we would like to look at the size and cost of the projects to be able to break them into smaller size projects so that we can fund those sooner rather than later and actually build towards BTU. So what is our evaluation approach? Like I mentioned, we want to maintain the purpose and need from the PD&E. We recognize that we spent a lot of time and effort during this study. So if there's any concepts that are still valid with the new tools that we have, we want to preserve those. We definitely want to stay within the right of way that was already identified from the PD&E. We do not want to go outside that right of way. We want to provide similar traffic operations or better if we can. And then as we do this, we want to come up with cost savings opportunities so that we can build this project and not having wait 10 years for the funding to be available. And then as we continue this evaluation, we're gonna be cognizant that we're gonna have to do traffic reevaluations, environmental reevaluations, and that's gonna take time. So we just gotta keep that in mind for our schedule. And then also engaging stakeholders. We have been doing this presentation to all of our local stakeholders, cities, counties, to just let them know where we're headed with I-4 BTU and why we're headed that way. Okay, so looking at I-4 BTU, the South, we kind of broke the South into two segments. The first segment is from State Route 528 to US 192. And some of the key elements of our value engineer concept include bringing the I-4 mainline at grade. And my next slide is gonna show you what I mean by that, including buffer separation, relooking at the access points. And then by bringing I-4 mainline at grade, we are gonna have to relook at the interchanges and see if our main line at grade now fits underneath some of those interchanges. And then we're still going to be using some of the collector distributor systems that were being proposed in the PD&E. So this image basically shows you a typical section that came out of the PD&E. That was basically between Osceola County and that was the Orange County typical section basically. And as you can see, we had to elevate the express lanes. And what this translated to was a lot of cost for us. So with this in mind, how do we get I-4BTU built sooner rather than later? And with the new tools that we have, we are basically looking at this proposed typical section. We're using the buffer separated instead of barrier separated. And we're still providing a space for the rail, most likely on the right side of I-4 within the DOT right away. We're gonna have some pinch points, but there are some options to still accommodate that by possibly elevating some of the sections of I-4. Beyond this point, so the other segment on the south is from US 192 to US 27, and that basically covers all of the limits of the original PD&E. We're currently evaluating alternatives. We're based on those new tools that we have. We are coordinating closely with Brightline as they have plans to connect to Tampa. And then we're also coordinating with District 1 as well as Turnpike. I know that they have that interchange at Poinciana Parkway, or basically Poinciana Parkway extension all the way to 429. So we're coordinating with them so that we're not precluding each other from building all of the projects that we need. And then on the north, the two segments 3 and 4 that go from 434 to Stereo 472, we're basically doing the evaluation right now. We're looking at the operational needs. So we know we need capacity on I-4. So how do we address this capacity? We're looking at the operations of the interchanges, the ramp terminals, and keep in mind that, if funding becomes available, we want to be ready by coming up with smaller size projects that can be easier, that can get funded easier and faster. So what are the next steps when it comes to this reimagining of I-4? We want to continue doing our stakeholder outreach as we progress on our evaluation and have more details to share. We want the feedback and be able to hopefully incorporate that feedback if the goals align. So we will be scheduling future discussions with our local partners, and then we will be adjusting our approach and implementation as funding becomes available. The whole goal of the exercise is to be able to build I-4 beyond the ultimate sooner rather than later by coming up with smaller size projects that become easier to fund. Quick programming update. This is what's coming down the pipeline right now on the south. So we have the Champions Gate DDI that's under construction right now with an estimated completion in the fall of 2022. We also have the Ox lanes on I-4 from County Road 532 to State Road 429, as well as the milling and resurfacing of I-4 from Polk County line to State Road 417. Those two are go-with projects with a letting in August of this year. And then we also have the Darrell Carter interchange with an anticipated letting in January of 2022, as well as the Sand Lake Road interchange project that I mentioned at the very beginning of the presentation with an anticipated letting in May of 2022. Also not shown in the screen, we have projects on the north in Seminole County that are also near completion. We have the E. Williamson Bridge replacement with an anticipated completion in summer of this year. We also have an auxiliary lane project that's in the eastbound lanes from where I-4 Ultimate ends to Lake Mary Boulevard. And then resurfacing of I-4 in the westbound direction in Seminole County. All of these three projects have an anticipated completion by the summer of this year. And then finally, we have the Wakaiva Section 8 interchange, which is the interchange of Wakaiva Parkway and I-4 that's under construction. That will complete the beltway around Orlando, and the anticipated completion is in spring of 2023. So that is the end of my presentation. I will be happy to take any questions you guys have.
Thank you very much, Catalina. Yeah, I was kind of scared at first when we were talking that 45-year horizon, but some of those intersection improvements that you had on the screen a minute ago, that'll help some of this. But so this beyond the ultimate does that still have the toll lanes? Because the whole downtown corridor was accelerated by 15 years because of the toll lanes coming into it. Is that the thought for beyond the ultimate as well?
So that is what we're doing right now. We have updated policies that allow us to relook at how do we add that capacity that we need. So we know we need to add more capacity to I-4. Do we do it via the express lanes, or can we add general use lanes and still serve the operational needs that we have? So, I mean, that is a new tool that we have now that we did not have when we were doing the PD&E and when I-4 Ultimate was being evaluated. So that's part of the evaluation.
And then is there any discussion right now of the gap between 27 and 417? That, I mean, it's a mess day in and day out
So
right now, and let alone 10 years from now.
So basically kind of like the top two projects shown on the screen, they intend to relieve some of that congestion. So we have the Champions Gate interchange, the DDI at 532, that will help to move the traffic out of the main line of I-4, as well as adding those aux lanes that we partnered with the Turnpike. We're adding those aux lanes on the outside of I-4 from Champions Gate along 429. So, you know, it's kind of part of like this vision that we have, trying to put projects that are going to relieve the operational needs, but it's going to be smaller size projects that we can actually build it and get funded sooner rather than later.
Perfect. Anyone else have any questions?
I do, and I feel kind of silly asking it. This elevated I-4, is that just an idea, or is this like, that's the plan?
So that was the concept that came out of the PD&E study. And that was different time. Like I said, we have new tools nowadays. We were using barrier separation with this concept.
So this is not the idea anymore because it costs too much? Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
This is what we're looking at right now.
Okay, this seems much more doable. All right, thank you.
That's the whole goal. Yes.
And then if Brightline happens when we're talking about it happening, does that help accelerate some of this, of rebuilding some of the bridges that DOT was looking at having to do, or is that affect at all?
So if, you know, right now, I'm not sure about the timeline for Brightline as they go basically from Disney to Tampa, because that's when they will go in the median of I-4. But we're in coordination with them. We want to make sure that we don't preclude each other. So we have been coordinating with them and depending on their timeline and our timeline. But those are, you know, we are looking at those potential conflict points and see how we mitigate those. Do they replace the bridges? What do we do to mitigate those conflict points?
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Catalina.
Thank you.
And that is our last presentation. Up next is general information. There are several items under the general information tab 6 of your agenda packets today. Those include the air quality report, DOT's monthly construction status report, and Link's press releases. Our next MAC meeting will be in person on September 8th, 2021 at 9:30 in the morning here in the boardroom. MAC members must attend physically to be marked present for the meeting, and members of the public may attend in person or may join virtually via Zoom or on the phone. And then the next MetroPlan Orlando board meeting will be held in person next week on July 7th, 2021 at 9 a.m. here in the boardroom. At this time, are there any committee members that wish to have any final comments?
September 8th is a Wednesday, just to note.
Uh-oh, we messed that up.
So it's the 9th.
Yep. September 9th. All right. We were looking at 2020. We just didn't want to reload that. All right. So September 9th, 2021 at 9:30. Thank you very much. All right. Any other comments? Microphone.
Right, so I will follow up with each of the 5 subcommittee members. We'll find a good time for everyone, and then we'll also include the bylaws for review, and we'll also provide some supplemental information for the nominating part of it, some attendance records and things like that for the leadership aspect of that group's work. Yes, Virginia?
Mr. Chairman, your next meeting is actually September 2nd.
Okay, we'll change it again. All right, September 2nd,
Thank you, Virginia.
2021 at 9:30 a.m. All right. Perfect. And that's a Thursday, right?
And that is definitely Thursday.
Perfect. All right, September 2nd. All right, at this time, we have general comments from the public. Is there anyone online or on the phone with any comments?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have anyone wishing to make a comment online.
All right, perfect. And then there were no comments before the meeting, Alex? All right, perfect. And at this time, there is no further business. I hope everyone has a safe and fun July 4th, and we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.